Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel Reverie Writer. My name is Didi and I am a passionate writer who's also juggling with her work as a full-time banker and pursuing my masters in philosophy. In today's video, we're going to talk about how to build a framework for your novel. And if you haven't seen my previous video, I basically talk about 5 important steps that you need to follow before you actually start writing your first ever novel. And building a framework is one of the first steps that you need to go through. If you haven't watched that video previously, I will link it down below in the description box. But for reference, a framework is basically all your ideas and all the plots that you want to put in your novel, be it fiction writing or non-fiction, any kind of genre that you have. A framework really helps you build a great foundation for your novel. So I'm going to be telling you how exactly I build my framework for my novel, and it's more important for you to understand that a framework is not something that you just do at the beginning and then never look back at it. It's always an ongoing process. You always add and delete things to your framework. So don't limit yourself that just because you've built a framework and you've written, say, 500 words, then that's it. It will continuously keep changing as and when you build your novel and as and when you start writing. So I will show you how I've built my framework over the years when I was working on my debut novel, and I'm also going to show you some tips and tricks that will help you in better formulating your framework and giving you an overall structure to how your framework will look like, and more importantly how that will then translate into the actual writing of the book. So let's get down to it. Alright guys, so I'm gonna begin by showing you my book that I've been using ever since I decided that I want to start writing a novel. This book is almost 7 to 8 years old because I think I got the idea to write a novel somewhere around 2013 or 14, like probably a year after I graduated from college. And so it's probably since 2014 that I've been using this book, and this is just a normal A4 size spiral notebook, probably 200 pages. And what I basically do in this notebook is that I put in all my ideas, anything that comes into my mind which I feel can be part of either the story or the process of the writing, dialogues, anything that comes into my mind that I want inside, like within the story, goes into this book. And if I show you what it's like, it's messy, mind you, because I never really bothered with decorating it per se. But if you see that this was probably one of the earliest forms of ideations that I had, and I didn't think much of the story at the beginning as much as I wanted to focus on certain basics, like for instance the name of the towns that I would be having or the name of the characters. It wasn't even necessary that I'm going to use all of these names or all of these places. It was more of like whatever comes into my mind, I'm just going to dump it into this particular book so that later on I will have all the options that I need and I can have a better, decision that I can make when it comes to what I want in the book and what I don't want. So this is the kind of rough sketch work, or what you would say, just dumping down your ideas into the notebook so that later on you can see what all parts of it you want, what all you don't want. These are just some terrible drawings that I've done over the years because I assumed I'm a good artist, but clearly I'm not. So when you're getting down to writing a framework, some of the basics that you can think of is what characters do you want and whether you would have a protagonist or not. Say for instance, if your protagonist is a male or a female, what are the relation of other characters to that protagonist. These are some of the most basic things that I think that you need to sort out at the very beginning so that the actual evolution of the story takes place around these basic factors. A lot of times we think that when we are writing a book we need to focus on the bigger picture, but the bigger picture is always the easier part because those are things which are very broad ideas. It's this minute details that would really matter when you actually get down to writing, because you don't want any form of interruption when you're actually writing down, because as clear as your mind may be, writing is very difficult, and it really helps when you've sorted out all your ideations in whatever form that is most comfortable to you. Like for instance, I'm a sucker for pointers, so I always used to make bullet points and made sure that everything that I have is categorized. Like, for instance, I had character sketches separately, and then I even had geographical sketches made wherein I knew that the different scenes in my particular book or the different locations in my book would all have a distinct feature. So I made sure that all of those were done separately, so that later on, when I actually had to start writing down, I wouldn't have to really boggle my head on that. And this is over the years that I have eventually added more things to it. And as you can see from page 1 to page 1 to say the fourth or the fifth page, there is a lot more structuring in terms of the content as well, because probably by this stage, which was maybe around 8 to 10 months or maybe even a year, I had a better idea of what I'm working on, and that way I could segregate my ideas in a better form. And that's what's going to happen with you guys as well. The more you think about it, the more ideas you will have and the more links you can make, and it's going to be a very simple process. And you can also do stuff like these. You can make flowcharts. Like, I really felt that these kind of flowcharts were very easy for me, because I had a lot of characters in my book and I have a lot of places in my book as well. So for me, making such flowcharts and actually even organizing who lives where, who does what, all of those things really help when you've just written them down. And because later on you don't want to mess up on some of the fundamentals, like messing out on which character lives where, and at the beginning of your story it's somewhere and at the end of the story it's someplace else. You don't want to have those kind of errors in your in your story. And yeah, if you're someone who loves to draw, or can have a better visual representation of your areas, then go for that as well. I am not the biggest artist out there. I really don't have much of a knack when it comes to drawing, but sometimes it just helps when I sketched out a place, just to make sure that in my own mind those visuals are more clearer. And you don't have to be a big artist for that. You can literally just draw a circle the way I did, and in your head you have to be clear, because when you're putting it out in your words, you need to be very clear with what you're trying to describe. It really helps later on when you have pictorial representations. So if you're a good artist, well and good, it's going to be all the more easier for you, I guess. But if you're not, doesn't matter. All you need is to be clear in your head. And if you can see over here, I have made bullet points. So eventually, once I started writing, I was somewhere in the middle of the book. I have completed my manuscript, by the way, so I am done with the writing part. So initially, when I was somewhere like 2 or 3 chapters done, I started formulating my idea even better. What I used to do was that I would write down pointers first, like how the story would proceed, what is the first scene, and maybe what happens after that. And I would make points of those. Supposedly I have 10 points. Then what I would do is, once I've written down those 10 points, for instance, after that I would segregate where one chapter would end and where the other would begin. Because once I've made those 10 pointers and once my story is in the form of points, it will be easier for me to make sure that I have a better ending for a particular chapter. I would be better able to place things like cliffhangers or things like, climaxes, things which are very important for you to sustain your reader with. Because if your reader gets really bored by the end of chapter 1, in all likelihood he or she is not going to continue with chapter 2. So you got to make it interesting enough that the person who's reading your work is also interested to go along with the second chapter, rather than just getting bored of it. So that really depends on you, how you're going to retain your reader. And the best way to do is just to formulate these ideas and make sure that your endings are always not necessarily a cliffhanger, but at least interesting enough that the person continues with the second chapter. So I spent a lot of time doing that, and these are just a few excerpts of whatever I had written. Most of my work was digital, of course, because I've been typing it out on my laptop. But when you have a pen and a paper, and when you have a dedicated notebook or a journal of this sort, it really helps you in making sure that your ideas are all set in one place. And more importantly, I think for me personally, it helps me with my visualization process, and it helps me clear my mind out as well. So for me, a notebook and a pen really work wonders in comparison to digital note taking. And as I said, that it started off somewhere around 2014, because I usually date my pages. And yeah, this started somewhere around 2014, and it has continued up till 2018. So you can see that it is not a one-day process, it's not even a 1 month process. The more serious you get with your work, the more effort you need to put in as well. These are the kind of chapter segregations that I did. I think a framework really helps you with segregating your thoughts, giving a better structure to your chapters, because that's what I did. I would write down what all points would each of my chapter convey or would cover, so that later on when I'm writing, I have a clear set of instructions, I have clear framework that I can follow through. And that really helps you speed up your writing process, that gives you better clarity, and that also helps you write better overall. The content that you end up creating is just so much more clear that you're really satisfied with it. So these are the kind of, and this is the latest, I guess. This is somewhere from February of 2020. So you see, even though I have completed my manuscript and I am now working on editing, I still revise my framework, because I feel that until and unless your book is gone for publishing and has gone for printing, there is always something or the other that you would want to cross-check, you would want to add or delete. So don't ever stop working on your framework, rather just keep evolving it, and that really helps down the line. So I just give you a glimpse into how my framework was built. Like I said, there is no particular hard and fast rule that you need to follow when you're making a framework. It could literally be anything, the way you are most comfortable with. And like I keep saying every time, that writing is a very personal process. There is no correct or wrong way to going about it. These are tips that I could probably give you, or various other sources from which you can get ideas on how to start writing, or how to work on your novel. But at the end of the day, your process is something that you're going to create on your own. And as you start working on your novel, and as you go through the entire process of writing the book itself, you will realize that you're making your own process. You will have your own steps that you follow or abide by. So don't limit yourself to these suggestions, rather use them as tools, use them as aid. And I hope at the end of the day you enjoy following your passion and you enjoy writing. So I'll see you again in another video that talks about me and my writing, and helps you in discovering your passion for writing as well. See you next time.